document that I'm going to be going over today, because that document is going to become the key to how you extract all of the information that you want, ways to handle that information on the company that you're looking at. You're going to have a marvelous tool at the end of this webinar to be extraordinarily proficient at evaluating a company. All right. Now you'll notice at the top here, it says template for evaluating a company for sale using ChatGPT. So that's a nice heading for it. Now you know exactly what this is. And then the next item here is something that says instructions. Copy and paste everything below the line following these instructions and before the instructions near the end of this template into the chat box and attach the PDF copy of the CM supplied to you by the business broker. Okay, now in case you're not exactly sure what that means, if you were to pull up ChatGPT, this is what you're looking at. And over here, this is all the questions. I've been testing it, and it creates a separate session for each one of these. And then down the box here in the bottom, there's this little dialog box here. It says message ChatGPT. So this is where you paste the things in here that I'm going to be giving you. Here's where you communicate with ChatGPT. And you'll notice there's this little paper clip right here, which means if you want to upload something to ChatGPT for it to evaluate for you, it can be a PDF, it can be a graphic, it can be a Word doc, whatever kind of document it is. You just click this and it'll ask you something like this, upload from computer. So you click that, then you just will go to the file that you want to upload, and within seconds, right, it's uploaded. Okay, so when you hear me say attach a document, that's what I'm referring to is you type in here, you cut and paste in here, but if you have a document, you do that through the paper clip right there. Okay, so hopefully that's clear. All right, now this is what you have a template of. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to take these instructions and follow them here. So everything you see here, and it's a long document, so you're going to copy, and I'm just going to, you've done this 1,000 times. So what this does, you just keep doing it all the way to this line right here, where it says end of cut and paste. And you don't do the line, but you take everything that you'll have highlighted, you copy it, and then you paste it into that chat box on ChatGPT. All right. And then when you do that, you will then, I'm going through this in detail because some of you maybe haven't used ChatGPT. So when you do that, there's this little button over here that's like a send button. So once you have it copied in there, all you're going to have to do is click the send button. And now ChatGPT is going to go to work following the instructions that you gave it. All right. So here's the instructions. Okay. So here's what's going into ChatGPT. It's everything from this line all the way through to that line at the bottom that I gave you. Let's go over what you've just asked of Chat. I have received, and by the way, the one that's the part about ChatGPT is you literally just talk to it like it's a person. Okay. Just think of it as another person. Think of it as a person with a PhD capable of understanding any question you're going to put in there and coming up with a formidable answer based on the quality of the question that you asked. So when I say you're going to learn a little bit about using AI today, what you're going to see is how detailed we are about what we ask ChatGPT to do. The better you ask your question, the more detailed your question, the better composed your question, although it will uncompose it no matter how badly you've composed it. But the clearer you can make your question, the clearer you're going to get your answer. Okay. So here's how we do this. We want ChatGPT to analyze what's called a confidential information memorandum. And we receive that from the business broker who wants to sell us the company. If the company doesn't have a broker, the owner may have put together the equivalent of a CIM, and it'll be that document that you're going to do this with. But whatever that document is, that's the document we're going to attach to this request. So right now we're just copying and pasting, and what's going to get pasted in there is your conversation with ChatGPT. You're saying to ChatGPT, I have received a company's confidential information memorandum, CIM, from a business broker and need to decide if I want to pursue a purchase. Please evaluate the company for sale using the attached CIM. In your evaluation, address the following questions. If any of the questions are not answered in the CIM, please indicate that so I can follow up with the broker. Okay. So that's the specificity of what you're asking ChatGPT to do. All right. So you have typed this whole thing in, you attached the CIM, which it will now read. It will read that entire CIM. It doesn't matter if it's a PDF file, a Word file, doesn't matter what it is. ChatGPT is able to read it. And even if it has graphics in it, it'll read the graphic, it'll know the graphic, it'll understand what the graphic is illustrating. So here's what we've told it to do. Here's the information that follows our request. Okay, questions. Company information. So, what do we want to know about the company? We want this question asked first because when we get the printout, we want to be able to look at the top and know which company this is. You may be doing this for a number of different companies. So, what is the company's name? Right now, that'll answer. It'll be right at the top. What is the primary product or service offered? What is the company's principal address? Okay, so that'll be right at the top of the printout that we're going to get from ChatGPT. Those answers. All right. Then company operations. Provide a brief description of the company. It will, having read that whole CIM, it will understand this company, what it does, how it works, all of that financial information. It'll have all of that ready to prepare these answers for you. So it will take all of that and boil it down into a brief description of the company that tells you succinctly and clearly what is this company, what does it do, where does the company have physical locations? So they may have 3 locations, they may be in different cities, whatever it is. If that's in the CIM, it'll tell you that here. What is the geographical scope of operations and sales? It only does business in Denver, or it does business anywhere in the Western United States, or it does business all over the country or internationally. It'll tell you what the scope of the business is in terms of its reach. What percentage of the market does the company hold for its products and services? ChatGPT will go into the internet. I try and identify what that marketplace is, how big that marketplace is that this company services. Try to get an idea from all that data that's out there, and it'll find it if it's out there. And then compare that to the amount of business that your CIM says this company does. And then it'll tell you what share of its market it has. That's an important question because if it only does a relatively small portion of its market, then it's got a lot of room for growth. If it does 90% of the business in its marketplace, there's no room for growth there, at least not in that marketplace. So these are the things that are starting to give you key information about the company. How old is the company? Is this a 10-year-old company, a 50-year-old company? Was it formed yesterday and the guy just formed it, wants to sell it? People are crazy out there. You want to know what the age of the company is. It'll give you an idea of how long it's been around. If it's an old company, the chances are it's got a lot of outdated processes in it. If it's a fairly young company, the chances are that they've been better at adapting modern technology as a way of keeping their information in their systems. What are the company's SIC and codes? Even if they don't give you these in the CIM, because ChatGPT knows what the business of the company is because it read the CIM, it will go and identify which standard industrial classification code or which North American industry code system, what code it is for NAICS. So between these 2 numbers, you've made any further research on the company very easy because now you can tap into information about the industry that the company is a part of. So it'll know that even if it wasn't put into the CIM. What are the industry trends affecting this company? That may or may not be discussed in the CIM. Sometimes the broker, if they write a good CIM and the industry is growing in leaps and bounds, they'll have some statistics in there relative to the industry and its growth and all of that. But not every broker's that good that they do that. So when you ask this question, if it can't find it in the CIM, it'll go out onto the internet and go find what the trends are in the industry. So now you're going to have a better chance of knowing, is this business part of a growing industry or isn't it? Okay. Does this company have a future because the industry itself is growing? So you're going to know that when you finish this process. What are the company's key performance indicators? It may not say anything about this directly in the CIM. ChatGPT knows what a KPI is. They know how to take the numbers that are in the CIM that discuss the number of units they might be selling, the amount of dollars that they may be selling, and it will identify certain key performance indicators that are applicable to that company and then tell you what they are. So now you'll have a sense of not only what are key KPI indicators, but performance indicators, but what ones apply to this company. What are the main operational challenges the company faces? Okay. They may discuss this directly in the CIM, but a lot of times they don't. An honest CIM would say, these are the industry challenges and here's what the company does to overcome them. A bad CIM doesn't tell you that. So if that's not in there, then ChatGPT will go out into the marketplace and identify industry-wide what are the operational challenges for this type of company, given the current economic conditions and et cetera. Okay, what is the company's approach to innovation and technology adoption? Okay, so in the CIM, it may say this company has the latest technology, but it has this software system, now they're up to date. And if it doesn't say anything about that, the chances are pretty good it'll tell you they didn't say anything about that. It'll tell you we didn't get an answer to that. And then you'll know that probably this company isn't really tuned in to the latest technology, or they probably would have said something about it if it's an important part of the company. All right. So this will start to give you a pretty good profile of company operations. Then you get down in here for the next thing that's important for you to know, which is ownership details. All right. So first question here, how many owners are there? You want to know, is this company owned by one person? Is it owned by two brothers? Is it owned by three people? Is it owned by another company? In other words, how many owners are these and what are their names? And if they're people, how old are they? All right. Why do you want to know that? You want to isolate that information because if they're 50, their motivations are going to be very different than if they're 75. Okay. And your whole approach to the owner is to a large extent going to be adapted to their age and what their motivations to sell are. How urgent is it for them to sell? What needs do they have that you can construct or structure your deal to satisfy for that particular seller? And as you start to learn this information here about the company, you're in better and better position to sculpture and structure your deal so that the owner is going to get what's really important to them. What are the roles and responsibilities of each owner? And this is important for you to know because you want to know who's key to this company, who's doing the important functions, who's responsible for sales, who's responsible for production, who is it that does the quality control and make sure that the product it turns out are quality products. So you want to know all the different areas that the owners are responsible for. Because if you have to replace the owner, you want to know you can do that by what they do. If the company's owner doesn't do it and it has other people, that's something that you want to know. They can do it. You don't have to do it because I got other people to do it. So what are the roles and responsibilities of each owner? And then the next key question is, are the owners willing to stay on and run the company? And if so, for how long? A lot of times it'll say in the CIM, the owner's willing to stay on for 6 months and transition to the new owner. Okay, so that owner's gone, which means the goodwill of the business, if he's a key person, is gone. Because when they leave, all the goodwill goes out the door unless you step in and can replace it. But then it's you that's replacing the goodwill. Why are you paying for the goodwill if you're the one who has to go in there and replace it? Okay. So are the owners willing to stay on and run the company? I like to see that they're willing to stay on for at least 3 to 5 years and continue the process. Deals work best when the owner stays on for a long period of time and continues to run the company, leaving you free to go out and do other business, go buy more companies. And then over a long period of time, 3 to 5 years, take the time to find a great replacement or groom the replacement from other key individuals within the company. What are the reasons for selling the company? This tells you a myriad of things about it. And a lot of times it'll be because it's a key question that buyers ask. So many times it will be in the CIM. What are the reasons for selling the company? Now, the first question you might ask is if all this stuff is in the CIM, then what difference does it make if I ask all these questions? All I got to do is go read the CIM. Yes and no. Okay. And the reason to know is it's organized. Every CIM is organized differently. The information is in a different place. It's said in a different way. It's in a different type size. It's hidden in a bunch of other information that's over here and someplace else. The beauty of this is you got ChatGPT digesting the whole CIM and now putting the information right where you know exactly where it is. So as you know what's on our template, you know right where to go for that particular question and that particular answer. So it takes a disorganized, non-uniform bunch of CIMs and it organizes it, puts all the information in a place where you can identify it and get to it easily and quickly. Okay. Do the owners prefer a partial or complete sale? Sometimes you'll see in the CIM, the owner wants to sell 10%. The owner wants to sell 50%. The owner wants to sell 80% and retain 20%. You'll see all that in there. Now you know where to find that. Once you've done this, you know where to find that information right here on the output that'll come out from ChatGPT. Are the sellers open to seller financing? If so, for how much? A lot of times that will be in the CIM, buried somewhere in there. The seller's open to seller financing, and he's willing to take 40% seller financing or 60% seller financing. If I'm just sitting here going through a lot of CIMs, man, this is doing a lot of work for me and putting information in front of me where I can go, this one's no good. This one's not for me. This one hasn't got the right answers. This one, but here's one that has all the right answers. And as I'm going through it, I can make decisions very quickly without having to read a bunch of disorganized CIMs with information all over the place in no uniform format. Okay, so now, we continue on here. Okay, are the sellers open for a rollback investment? In other words, here they're willing to take a note for this for part of the purchase price. But here, are the sellers open for rollback? That means they're willing to take the money they get from the close and invest a portion of it back in your buying company, back in your SPE, that's buying their company, your special purpose entity. Why is that important? Because if there's an answer there, I know I've got a pretty sophisticated seller. They know something about selling their business and how to make it attractive to a buyer. But what's more, if they're willing to do a rollback investment in my buying company, guess what that does for me as a buyer? It lets me, by knowing how to set up the proper escrow structure, show that there is not a loan to the seller or from the seller. There's an investment from the seller, which guess what? That money that he rolled back into an investment is going to show as equity investment in the company. And if I know how to structure, which I do, that's going to look to the lenders and everybody else as if I am putting up the investment money. So that's going to end forever. What's your skin in the game? All right. Because there's going to be an equity investment in the buying company, which is going to increase the amount of leverage that you can use. It's going to increase the amount of loan money you can get by virtue of an equity investment in the buying company. So these are all important questions that can tell you very quickly the benefits of this that are available to you through this company. These answers aren't always in the CIM, and you're going to see how we handle that in a moment. But if you can get the answers to these questions and put your fingertips on these answers really quickly, you become a much more powerful business buyer. All right. Then there's financial performance of the company, things that we want to know. What are the company's sales revenue, net profit, and EBITDA? Now, net profit and EBITDA are different. Net profit, you can make lots of net profit and have a negative EBITDA. And the reason you can have that is you got a lot of accounts receivable. Okay. And if you don't collect them and they get to be 120 days old, your EBITDA is very low. You got lots of net profit, but you got the taxable income coming in, but you're not getting the cash. The cash isn't flowing through the company. EBITDA is the most important number on there in reality, because yes, you want to make profit, but if it doesn't translate into a strong positive cash flow, then it may not be a company that you want to buy, because you're not going to have enough cash flow to amortize the debt that you incurred to pay for the company. So you want to know these numbers, and it's going to go understand where they are in that CIM, and it's going to put them right here for you on your printout. Now, what is the year-over-year growth rate in revenue, net profit, and EBITDA? Year-over-year growth rate is one of the two most important numbers that you will see, and you want it extracted and put right here where you can see it. And the reason it's important is because the multiple of EBITDA that you affix to the company as a valuation, how much is the company worth, is much different if it's got a very slow, minuscule year-over-year growth versus it's growing like a weed. Every year it's 30, 50, 70% more than it was the year before. And the reason is, if you're growing that fast, then it's entitled to a higher EBITDA because the company is very quickly going to pay for itself. If you have a very slow growth, then the company isn't going to pay for itself very quickly because it's not growing with enough future profits to pay off all that debt that you borrowed. So the thing that makes a company worth more is not just the EBITDA, but the growth rate attributable to that EBITDA year after year. So when you know that, whether you're going to be able to put a high value of a multiple on the company of EBITDA versus a low multiple. What is the EBITDA as a percentage of revenue year by year? All right. We're buying companies now where the gross profit in the company is like 90% and the EBITDA is 80%. Their cost of goods or cost of services are so low relative to the value that they create that there's huge margins in some companies. I want to buy huge margin companies all day long, because any little thing changes, it's not going to affect the profits that much. Whereas if I'm working on a 3 or 5% net profit margin and one of my costs or one of my expenses increases and I don't catch it right away to infuse it back into new pricing, then I can lose a whole lot of money before I even know it. So we like to look for companies with a very high percentage of the revenue is EBITDA and where it has very high margins. What is the last year of financial data provided in the CIM? A lot of times it's the middle of 2020, and we'll see that the CIM, as the last revenue figures they gave us, are the year-end 2023. This is a volatile world. That was 6 months ago. We need to know what these numbers are now. So that's telling me, before I can make any kind of an authoritative offer on the company, I've got to have their current financials that bring me right up to date last month, or right up to the last day of last month. And I need to have them before I can really commit, even in an LOI, which is non-binding, to any form of pricing or valuation on the company. The next one is there an explanation for the absence of more current financial information? A lot of times they don't say that in the CIM, but the reason we have it here is because when you see what happens after we do the printout that we're working on right now, we're going to have a second printout that we ask it to do, which is to take all of our unanswered questions that it couldn't find answers for and print out a list of those questions so that we can ask the broker or ask the seller. And we'll have a list, a compiled list, so that we can supplement what it finds in the CIM with the right questions to go back and ask the broker and the seller, what's with this? Okay, so nothing's going to fall between the cracks when we're finished with this. What has limited the company's growth rate up to now? Like I said, a lot of times we're going to find those answers in there. You're going to see there was COVID, and with COVID we lost half our sales, and then as COVID decreased, we gained them all back again, and now we're growing like a weed. All right, so that kind of stuff will be in there, and it gives you a rationale for how the company it got to be what it is and what challenges that may or may not present for you. Continuing on, how did COVID-19 affect the company's earnings? Compare the impact of COVID-19 on the company relative to the industry. The CIM is probably not going to have any industry information, but ChatGPT is happy to go online and check a whole bunch of statistical websites and find out what has happened in that industry. And if the company did poorly going into and coming out of COVID, but the industry didn't do that bad in COVID rather, and now it's doing very well, that's telling you a little bit about how this company is managed and operating. You want to know that. What were the reason for any downturns or up in revenue or EBITDA? A lot of times you'll be looking through financial statements, either in the CIM or not in the CIM, and you'll notice this radical changes year to year in revenue or profit. This gets underneath that question. If there's evidence there, it'll find it. If it's not there, you'll find it in the questions that you're going to ask the seller. Does the company, have audited financial statements? Probably not if it's a small to even a mid-sized company. But if they have audited statements, you want to know that because it's going to make it a whole lot easier to get your financing for the company. Okay, consistency check. Consistency check. Is the business owner consistent? Is the business overview consistent with the financial data disclosed in the CIM? And what's going to happen here is the ChatGPT is going to go into analyst mode and it's going to say, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense in sales given what's happened to the supply chain. So if the supply chain was impaired for this period of time and the sales are up dramatically, that makes no sense. So we will construct a question to ask the seller, what happened here? Why did this happen? How does it happen? Are the graphics consistent with the data? So they may have graphics in there that show significant growth, but then the data that people have to actually dig into and mathematically understand doesn't back that up. So they're looking at the graphic and they're saying, oh, this looks beautiful, but they get into the data and it doesn't look so beautiful. ChatGPT can read the graphic and see if it's inconsistent with the data that gets into it at a deeper level and identify any discrepancies. So all that's going to happen here. Okay. Competitive advantage. Read the company description. This is your instruction to ChatGPT. Read the company description and identify their competitors, including the website URLs. So now it's knowing what this company does because it read the CIM. It's going to go onto the internet and identify its competitors and what their websites are. And so now, if you want, you can now later on, because you'll know who the competitors are and what their website is, you can go into those competitors and dig down on them and find out how good they are compared to this company you're buying and what chance your company has in that competitive world out there. What is the company's unique selling proposition? Okay. If they've got one, usually they're proud enough about it as to why they're different, how they get their customers that nobody else can compete with. They'll tell you that in the CIM and you want to know what it is. What is the company's competitive advantage? Is it the competitive advantage? They've really got low cost structure relative to their competitors. Okay. What's their competitive advantage in the marketplace? Can you start to see how, as you're learning all this information and having it put at your fingertips, that you're getting pretty knowledgeable about this company? And remember, you haven't spent 2 seconds yet to read the CIM. You got your hardworking PhD ChatGPT doing all this heavy lifting for you. So what is the company's competitive advantage? Okay, now having all that information, valuation in terms of purchase. Okay, it's going to tell you in the CIM, what is the asking price? Boom, here it is. You don't have to go find it. You know exactly what the purchase price is or the asking price. What does the asking price translate to as a multiple of EBITDA? You're going to know. Are they asking 3 times EBITDA, 5 times EBITDA, 10 times EBITDA, 20 times EBITDA for the company? You're going to know. It's going to be right there. How long has the company been on the market for sale? It makes a big difference. This company's been for sale since it's been on the market 24 years or 25 years, which is a little ridiculous, but sometimes it's going to be 3 years, 5 years on the market versus 60 days, right? Now, the reason you want to know that is because if the company's been on the market a very long period of time, chances are that by now, if it's been a really long time, that seller is going to start to become flexible in terms of the price and terms they're going to want for their company. What are the sources of revenue? So here they'll give you the product lines, the service lines. And then if they have graphs or anything within the CIM, you'll know what products they're selling the most of and what services or whatever are producing the revenue. Is there a concentration of significant revenue from a few customers? They probably aren't going to get into that level of detail in the CIM. So what will happen is this question will pop up again as something to ask the broker or the seller so that you can get an idea if there's concentration, like 20 or 30% of their business comes from one customer. That's not a good thing because if you lose that customer, you're out of business. On the other hand, if no more than 5% of their comes from any one customer, then that level of lack of concentration is important because now you've got relatively stable income. Loss of no one or two clients or customers are going to hurt you. Same thing is true of suppliers, by the way. Excuse me, we want to get into that as well. Are the sellers willing to consider seller financing? If so, how much? Now, that's a little bit of a duplication of a question that we asked earlier. It's just we're getting a little more refined here. Are the sellers willing to consider an earnout? An earnout means that you give them a certain price, which is relatively low for the company, relative to that demand that the seller is making for a much higher price that they want. And an earnout is a way you can give the seller their higher price for the company, because in order to qualify for the higher price, they have to build earnings in the company that justify it. So if the seller is saying to you, listen, this company's worth 5 times what we're saying it's worth, and they say it's only worth that if it achieves a certain amount of income. So if you want to do this, we'll do it with you on an earnout where if you believe you can get the company because you're going to run it up to that level of earnings, then we'll pay you that price. And then we'll have these markers, the income markers, let's say quarterly or annually, whatever you agree with, where if you hit this earnout level, then we pay you this much more money for the company. So that way, if they don't hit the earnout markers, then they're not getting paid for it. If they hit the earnout markers, then they were right. The company is worth more than it was when you looked at it before it built in this higher growth opportunity. So it lets you know if you can get on the same plane with the seller of showing him a way that he can get more money for the company. How did the sellers determine the asking price? Sometimes that will not be in the CIM, but if it may be a question, I want to make sure I'm asking the broker or the owner, because I may go back to them with my business price calculator, right? I show them exactly how this company gets valued in the marketplace, but they're saying, no, it's worth twice that or 3 times that. And then you ask them this question of how did you determine the asking price? And then you get back, John, my friend sold his company for that many times EBITDA. So mine must be worth that. In fact, my company's better than his, so it must be worth more. Or they'll say something like, that's the amount of money I need to retire. If I can't get that for the company, I can't retire. So that's what I got to get. All of that is not a justification for an asking price because the marketplace won't pay him what's good for him. It'll only pay him what the market price is. And that's what you got to get to. And so you've got to bring out onto the table the fact that the selling price is not justified. And this helps you do that. Okay, we're trying to understand this companies. And so we have our trusty PhD reading the CIM and pulling out all this data for us. So we want to know something about the customer base. What is the customer retention rate? In other words, they sell a guy today. How long is he with the company, right? Are they with the company for 6 months? One-time purchase ever? Clients hang in there and work with us for an average of 3 to 5 years. And what percentage of our customers cancel or drop out in any given year? What is the customer acquisition cost? How much does it cost us to get a new customer? Here's what we spent on advertising, marketing, if it's in the CIM, good old ChatGPT will find it, go pull it out. But if it doesn't find it, you can't pull it out, it's going to be on our list of questions to ask the seller. Are there any significant customer contracts that are up for renewal soon? Okay, if it's not in the CIM, we want to know that. So we're going to have to ask the seller that question and it'll be part of our due diligence to check and make sure that there are no big contracts that are ending soon, that once that contract ends, all that beautiful income that's been supporting them for the last year or 2 or 3, it's just gone and there's nothing there to replace it. Legal and regulatory. Okay. Are there any pending legal issues or lawsuits against the company? A lot of times, if the company has lawsuits or pending lawsuits, they just won't say anything about it. But if they don't have any, they're very proud of that. And in the CIM will be something along the lines of the company has product liability insurance and it has errors and omission insurance and it's got all these insurances and the company has no litigation or is not in any litigation and there's no litigation pending. They'll tell you that because they're proud of it. But if it doesn't say anything, then you got to go ask the seller. Are there any regulatory changes expected that could impact the company? A lot of times the company becomes for sale because the owner has been in the industry for years and he's been following the local politicians, and they're pushing for a certain kind of redistricting. And what's going to happen is his district, his area is going to get residential only instead of being commercial. So it's going to hurt his business. And there may be something that he has to do something in order to either stay there or move. And that's the reason he's selling the company. So we want to fish all that stuff out. And here's where that process starts. Human resources. How many employees does the company have? That'll probably be in the CIM. So you want to know, is this a 3-company employee with a high income that they outsource everything so they have high income but no employees? Or is there a number of employees that are committed and work directly for the company, and the company is able to sustain that ongoing payroll? Are there any key employees critical to the company's operation, and what are their plans post-sale? Probably will not be in the CIM, but it will then appear on the question list of the things that we want to ask the seller and the owner. Supply chain. Who are the company's main suppliers? Are there any supply chain risks or dependencies? Same concept here. Intellectual property. Companies that have patents, that have a strong brand identification and trademarks. There's certain intellectual property that gives a company more value. Maybe they've produced a certain software, or they have certain trade secrets that nobody knows except a handful of people, and that handful of people don't share that, but that lets them make a lot more money than the average company. So what intellectual property does the company own? Patents and trademarks, et cetera. Are there any pending IP issues or disputes? They may have a patent, but it's in dispute. So maybe they don't have a patent when the dispute settles. Environmental, social, and governance. That's a kind of a big item today. What is the company's ESG policies? Are there any ESG risks or opportunities? Okay, then 14, future prospects. What are the company's strategic goals for the next 3 to 5 years? A lot of times it's in the CIM. If it's not, we want to ask the seller. Are there any planned expansions or new product lines in the pipeline? So do they have any new stuff coming online? What is that? What is it? The market does it address? It's going to open up a lot of questions that we want to ask. What are the projected financials for the next few years? They gave you the history, and maybe they didn't give you the history. All they gave you was the projected financials. So this thing is going to be lopsided, and they're not going to have any financial information about the current stuff, about current and past, just these beautiful projections, which frankly, that's pie in the sky. So we want to know, are there projected financials, and do they tie in to the ones that you've seen in the past? Is there a big gap between what they've shown you already and now what they're projecting? Overall assessment. Okay, this is my favorite question, because we're asking ChatGPT, who now has read this whole thing, has digested it, fully understands everything it's telling it. Okay. And then we're saying, with all that wisdom that is built into the AI system, all that knowledge which it has now captured about the company. Okay, we're gonna ask that ChatGPT with the PhD, what stands out about the company, both good and bad, that I should know about? And that's the catch-all question. Whatever we weren't smart enough to ask, whatever we didn't know about that specific business, our brilliant artificial intelligence is going to come up, and it will probably go into a paragraph 2 or 3 with 10 or 15 different items that we didn't ask, because this company has certain unique factors and aspects to it. So that will be a beautiful question that will, again, give us insights into what other questions we need to ask the seller or the broker. Okay. Then the last thing it says here is an instruction to ChatGPT, is a follow-up request to what we just requested up here. And that is, for each of the above questions where no answer or relevant information was found in the CIM, please, and by the way, you'll see us use please in there. You think, why are we using please? We're talking to a machine. Interestingly enough, the statistics say that the algorithms that they put into this artificial intelligence likes to know we're appreciative. And when we say please and thank you, they tell me you'll get a better, deeper, more qualitative report. Okay. For each of the above questions where no answer or relevant information was found in the CIM, please print out a list of these questions for me to ask the broker and or the owner. So now I'm going to get another printout, not only answering all of those questions to the best of the AI's ability relative to what's in the CIM, but now whatever is missing, we're now going to have a complete list of questions to ask the broker and the seller, so that nothing is going to escape our investigation of this company. Now, there's no other process that I know of that you can use that's going to empower you to understand and know about this company than the process I just shared with you. Okay, so here is the end of your copy and paste. So it was between the two lines. Remember, we had a line at the top, we have a line at the bottom. So everything between just gets copied, put into the chat box on ChatGPT. You press the send button, you're done. You sit there and you watch it print across the screen. It'll take anywhere from 3 or 4 minutes to do the full printout. It'll start printing immediately. So it knows instantaneously the answers to all those questions. So it'll start printing, but it's only printing can go so fast right across your screen. And then when it's done, you hit the copy thing at the bottom of ChatGPT. You see where that is here? Okay, across the bottom here, there will be, when it finishes putting everything on your screen, over here on the left-hand side, you'll see something that says copy. Right here's a number of other things you'll see. You click that, it copies it, and now you just paste that on a Word document. And now you've got a Word document that you can work with, that you can cut and paste from that you can manipulate any way you want. And that will be the complete set of answers to the two things. One is the answers to all your questions that were able to be deduced from the CIM. And then the other part of the printout will be every question in order that you're going to want to ask the seller. So you're going to sound like a genius when you talk to the broker or the seller. You're going to sound like you understand this company better than anyone else that they've spoken to. There'll be nobody who is prepared and informed as well as you. None. And that goes a long way, frankly, in convincing the seller that you have the credibility to buy this company because you understand it. None of the other folks who she talked to had any concept of the things that you're asking and discussing with that seller. So you've already positioned yourself with credibility beyond anyone else that seller or broker is speaking with. Okay, now here is the last piece of instructions that I would be giving you today, and that is modification instructions. Not every broker is going to give you a CIM. Some of them are going to have an executive summary that they give you. Some of them are going to have a business plan that they give you. There's going to have something they call a prospectus. Okay, and so all you do is in the words where it says here, either the words confidential information memorandum or CIM, you do a find and replace. Find this, the confidential information memorandum, and replace with executive summary, replace with business plan, replace with prospectus, or whatever it is that they gave you. Okay. But now the document is now tailored to the particular document that they actually gave you. So this is the tool. It's incredibly powerful. It puts AI at its current highest level to give you the answers. It takes in not only everything from the CIM and then organizes it where you now know where that information is. You don't have to go digging and finding it. And it also positions you to where that information is now checked against information on the net to see its credibility, to see how things match up with the outside world, how the company matches up with its competitors. All that stuff is now coming together for you. And you didn't lift a finger. That's about it. You took a CIM PDF file that the broker sent you. You uploaded it to ChatGPT. You copy and paste on this particular tool that we just gave you. You put that into the chat box. You hit the send button, and that's it. Now everything is in your hands, organized in a way that you can effectively use it to evaluate the company. And I want to tell you, what we just put in your hands here has saved you, I would say, at the very minimum, 8 to 10 hours of digging through all the stuff, trying to organize the information so it makes sense to you, figuring out the right questions to get at the bottom of the different things that are a challenge within the framework of the CIM. You know what to ask the seller to fill in all the blanks. So that's the tool, ladies and gentlemen, and hopefully this has been helpful to you today.